Hi, my name is Lee Sherman, and I'm the Development Manager for the Ventura Hillsides Conservancy. And welcome to Our Ventura. Today, my guest is my co-worker and really good friend, Derek Poultney, who is the Conservancy's Conservation Manager. Hi, Derek. How you doing?
Very good. Great to see you, Lee. It's been a while.
Cool. Well, Derek and I work together at the Conservancy, and one of the questions we get asked the most is, what is a land trust? What does a land trust do? And Derek, you've been working for a land trust for many years, so I was hoping you could help shed some light on that topic.
Well, it's a great question because not so many people know or understand what a land trust is and does. And I can tell you from firsthand experience, until I got a job working for a land trust, I had no idea what one was either. So the first thing a land trust is it's a local organization. It's a nonprofit organization that's assembled by very interested and passionate people about open space and conservation. They get together and form a 501c3 organization, a nonprofit, and their main focus is land acquisition. And we can get more into that as we continue. But there are three main things a land trust does. It's land acquisition, and the second thing is once the land is acquired, they have the difficult job of stewarding or taking good care of that property forever. Once you acquire land and you get all the tax benefits and the government blesses you in taking care of that land, you have to take care of it as an organization forever.
What's the key word that we...
It's the audacity of perpetuity, and it's the toughest job a land trust faces over time. We all realize we're slightly coming out of a recession, and land trusts have a hard time raising money in recessions, and those happen cyclically over time. So there's like boom to bust periods for land trusts. But how to manage land over time is really a trick, because you have to slowly increase your endowments and your interest in your bank accounts, because you have to take care of these properties over time.
So what are some of the tools that a land trust can use to acquire properties?
Well, acquiring land, there are three main ways to acquire land. And the Ventura Hillsides Conservancy so far has received all of its lands by donation from a willing landowner. The second tool used is through a conservation easement, where a landowner works with the land trust and designates a portion of that property for permanent conservation. That's a very useful tool. There's a lot of tax benefits associated with any of the three tools. And the third tool is just outright purchase, buying land from a willing landowner. And depending on the landowner's needs, a land transaction can range anywhere from a donation to a purchase. In fact, it could include all three tools in one land acquisition.
So you said the Conservancy received all of its properties through direct donation from a landowner. It wasn't just one landowner.
That's correct.
Okay.
There have been 6 landowners that have donated parcels to us, totaling 27 acres now. When Lee and I first started at the organization, Lee started in 2009 and me in 2010, and there are only 2 acres for us to manage. And we've acquired 25 acres since, and we're obviously working on some more acquisitions all the time. But 6 of those landowners, not all at the same time either. So it takes a while for land trusts to increase the acreage and manage the properties. For example, I worked at the Ojai Valley Land Conservancy for 5 years before joining the Ventura Hillsides Conservancy. And if it weren't for their 1,500-acre Ventura River Preserve, which is incredibly popular, they would only have a couple hundred acres. So it ranges. Some land conservancies can exist for about 20, 30 years and have nominal acreage, and then all of a sudden you get 2,000 or 3,000 acres from a willing landowner. And then
you just answered one of my other questions that I had, was that are there any other land trusts operating in Ventura or Santa Barbara counties nearby?
Well, we're blessed here locally in Southern California. Just here regionally, we have the Ojai Valley Land Conservancy, which is adjacent to the Ventura Hillsides Conservancy's interest area, which I'll get into in a minute. And then also adjacent to the Ventura Hillsides Conservancy's interest area is the Nature Conservancy's work area in the Santa Clara River. So the Ventura Hillsides Conservancy's interest area spans from the Santa Clara River all the way up to Foster Park, where the 4 lanes of the Highway 33 narrows down to 2 lanes. And from there, Ojai Valley Land Conservancy owns and manages 6 miles of the Ventura River watershed and has a number of preserves that are open to the public, and very, very popular recreation destinations up there. And we're about 17 years younger than the Ojai Valley Land Conservancy. And so we're behind in the acreage. We're basically trying to do the same thing in the Ventura River watershed. And we work very closely with both the Ojai Valley Land Conservancy and the Nature Conservancy on local conservation. In fact, VHC and OVLC are working in tandem on the Ventura River Parkway project and trying to improve the health of the Ventura River watershed in general.
We've definitely spoken about that on this show before. A word that you mentioned, which has a different context for land trusts than maybe other groups, was stewardship. And I was wondering if you could go into that a little bit for us.
Well, stewardship is just a fancy word for taking good care of the property, and that takes on many forms. Some land conservancies don't open their preserves to the public at all, and so their stewardship is basically just habitat considerations for endangered species, for example.
What endangered species would we have here in Ventura, for example?
Well, the most popular one is the steelhead. That is kind of like the keystone in endangered species. That gets the most press. But we also have another lesser-known fish called the tidewater goby. Also, and the steelhead and the tidewater goby are in both the Santa Clara and the Ventura River watersheds. And then the 2 other main endangered species that you and I work with all the time, or consider in our work all the time, is the red-legged frog and the least Bell's vireo. And near our Foster Park, on our Foster Park properties, there could exist all 4 of those species at any given time. Wow. So it's a really important habitat. And when you talk about stewardship, the main challenge for land trusts is how to manage public recreation with sensitive wildlife habitat considerations. And in my particular strategy for stewarding properties is you've got to allow the people to enjoy the property, for them to be connected to it, to take ownership, to feel really good about it, to support our work. It's a lot harder to ask the community for financial support if we're not allowing them on the property.
Sure.
So when I look at stewardship, I really try to get the most out of public recreation and then give the endangered species or sensitive species as much quality habitat as they can. So one of our properties that we'll probably talk about a little bit is our Upper Estuary Willoughby property. That's between the Main Street Bridge and the Highway 101 bridge. And we are now in the process of encouraging the public to use that property. Well, I should say the public has been using that property for decades now, but we want the public to do bird watching and just hike and possibly mountain bike and take picnics and enjoy the wildlife down there. So with the endangered species that we know of, the least Bell's vireo and the steelhead, we need to direct people on certain trails, and then when there are endangered species found, we have to have a buffer zone around where they are. So that's the challenge, and that's what stewardship means to me. It's just balancing public and wildlife uses.
Well, in the short time we have left, let me switch gears a little bit and ask you how how you found your passion for this kind of work and what advice you might have for maybe some of our viewers who are college or high school age that may be considering a career in conservation.
Yeah, that's a good question. Everybody has their own memory when they were a child that seems to have taken them in the conservation path. I guess mine was my dad driving me all the way from Illinois to California to hike in the Sierra. So I remember climbing up the cables on Half Dome and climbing Mount Whitney when I was very young, and fishing and swimming in the lakes. So that's my first connection, and that leads, as you go through school and you're forced to do these projects and these long papers, then you choose what you're interested to do these papers. And so I remember doing great projects on the Owens River and Mono Lake, and I got to know the people that are passionate about the Eastern Sierra, and that's kind of directed my career path, is talking to people about the same interests, and how, do they have a job working on those interests? And so I felt like a great career would be, well, yeah, preserve land. That goes right in line with my whole educational background, which basically constitutes of a general undergraduate degree and then a focused master's degree in environmental science.
Okay.
And that's what I would urge any high school student to do, is just follow your passion and find a degree that matches it.
Great. Well, what are some of the ways, I know we've taken field trips before, but what are some of the ways that local students may not know that they can get involved and start working right now before they even get into college with the Conservancy?
Well, we have internships available. We have volunteer programs. I have a number of projects that I have interns helping me with right now. It's a great way to get real life experience in conservation. And if you don't have the time to focus a couple hours a week on an actual project, we have a couple hours a month at our monthly stewardship events, which constitute river cleanups, planting trees. And then if you don't have consistent time once a month, then there's times where you can just drop in and we'll find something useful for you to do. There's always more work than we can handle, and we encourage as many people to get involved as possible, because it's a real gift to have local nature preserves in such an urban setting, and they're great outdoor classrooms. In fact, Lee and I take hundreds of kids out to the river every year, and we're just amazed by how much they look forward to doing it next year. The same teachers come and can't wait to come back, and the outdoor classrooms is a great way to get the kids doing hands-on ecological restoration activities, planting trees, taking out nasty invasive weeds, and then we always have a little bit of fun splashing around in the river when we can.
All right. Well, we've got less than a minute left. What would you say is the greatest challenge to habitat restoration right now? The one thing that's really that has a stranglehold on Ventura River right now?
Well, I mentioned it earlier. I think the government funding is really vanishing pretty rapidly, and that was the primary source for ecological restoration, because all these government programs realized that maybe development happened in areas they shouldn't have, so when you have to go back and fix habitat, the government got a bunch of programs up. And so right now those funds are drying up, and so that definitely makes the community's financial support that much more important.
That is really important. And I'd like to thank you for joining us. I'd like to thank my guest, Derek, for giving us this tutorial on land trusts, and we'll see you next time on Our Ventura.